You go ahead.
My name is Elijah Boyd. I'm the U.S. Labor Party candidate for
Yeah.
mayor of what's left of New York City. Now, there are so many objectionable things that you've said in your talk that in the interests of getting at the bottom of your philosophy and the institutions that you represent, as opposed to the philosophy and institutions that I represent, I would like to challenge you to
I'm
an
delighted
open
to have you
public
challenge
debate
me.
on economic policy and how we get the world out of this depression.
Well, I'm afraid that's not the subject matter of this session today. It's a subject I have talked extensively about. Whether it is a most effective use of my time to debate you publicly in New York is a different question. Whether it is or not, it's not, I'm afraid, within the bounds of reason at the moment. So do you have a question you would like to raise about the content of what I have said here tonight?
Yeah, you specifically excluded mention of two things, namely the public unions, and secondly, the massive growth of debt service and public indebtedness of New York City, which is by and large the most important problem in not merely the educational system here, but the fact that this entire city is being subjected to the kind of Hayalmar Shaktian economics that is causing this city to virtually disappear. It is precisely the kind of economic policies that you have proposed and saw implemented in Chile that you are representing right here in this discussion.
Let us try to see if we can get out the little element of your comment which is really relevant to our discussion here. So far as trade unions are concerned, there is no doubt that the emergence of strong city unions has been a serious element of the problem of not only New York City as a whole, but of the educational problem. It's part of the reason why the costs of schooling in this city are so high. Again, a voucher system, by providing alternatives, by providing competition, would tend to reduce the possibility of the control which the unions have exercised, the stranglehold which they have been able to exercise. I have no objections to unions, provided there are alternatives and they are voluntary. As to the interest cost and the debt service, that really has very little to do with why it is that current operating costs of schools in New York City, independent of interest, independent of capital costs, are the highest in the nation.
That is an outright lie, and that's why I challenge you to a debate.
Well, I am sorry. I think we have given you a chance. I think we will take the next question.
All right,
Yes, sir.
Dr. Freeman. My name is Bill Hall. I have two questions to ask.
Yes, sir.
We hear a lot said against public education by people such as yourself and others. Can you tell me and those in the audience who are those that are advocating the present system? Are there people who are talking about the present system?
What do you mean, who are the people who are advocating the present
Well,
system?
you indicate that you find that you find some problems with the way schools are currently run.
I would suppose that that was the understatement of the evening.
Right. Okay. What I'm interested in is that there does not seem to be a debate. There does not seem to be people on the other side advocating what exists.
Nobody is advocating what exists.
Okay.
But the self-interest of people on the other side is keeping them from accepting the only effective cure.
Who are those individuals or organizations?
Those individuals or organizations? Well, as I was mentioning before, in the cases in which I have had direct contact with them, in Michigan, they're the Michigan Educational Association. In the city of New York, I take it they're the American Federation of Teachers. I take it they are in New Hampshire, where I had contact with them. They were the superintendents of schools. They were the local board, some of the local representatives of the educational administration, the superintendent of schools, the supervisors, and so on. Now, all of them recognize the problems. Many of them recognize the problems, of course. But they are in a bind because they regard what I believe is the only effective solution, which is greater power to parents, as a threat to their position. As I said before, I have no quarrel with them as individuals. They're decent human beings. They're not doing this because they want to produce bad education. I never would say anything like that at all. On the contrary, I think, especially among the teaching staffs, there are many devoted, dedicated teachers who, under terrible conditions, are trying to do the best they can. All I'm saying is I can only see one effective way to enable them really to do it. I may say I don't believe teachers in general are opposed to the voucher system. I have talked to many teachers who have said to me, I would much rather teach in the kind of schooling system that would develop under a voucher arrangement, where the students would be coming there of their own free will, where they would be choosing my school to come to. I would much rather teach in that kind of a school, but I don't have that possibility now. So I'm not questioning the intent or the desires or the aims of people. They are caught up in a system, and they are in a box where they believe, erroneously I think, that their self-interest would be hurt by shifting to a voucher scheme. My own belief is that the teachers would be among the biggest beneficiaries of a voucher system. They would be able to do their job. They would no longer have to be disciplinarians.
The reason I ask that question is that it certainly doesn't endear many of us who are a part of that enterprise that you're criticizing when there doesn't seem to be any effective options currently. The other question that I have deals with the voucher system.
Sure.
Is it the intent of the voucher system to break up the monolith, to make public education more dynamic, more competitive?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If the voucher system were uniformly applied, you see, the next stage is to apply it to the public school system itself. The next stage is to say, not only those parents who choose to take their child out of the school, but every parent will get a voucher. And he can use it anywhere he wants to. If he wants to use it at a public school, he can use it at a public school. And then the public schools would have to charge a tuition equal to the sum on the voucher, and they would have to finance themselves out of the proceeds from the voucher. As I said, I believe that the vouchers system is the only system that will save the public schools. It won't destroy the public schools. On the contrary, how can you destroy a system more effectively than it's destroying itself now? I have nothing to offer in that direction. They have everything to teach me. But what the voucher system would do would be to offer a way to turn that thing around and provide a creative move and a movement toward improving the public school system rather than making it worse. Look, I personally grew up in a small town in New Jersey. I went to a public elementary school. I went to a public high school. I went to Rutgers University on a state scholarship. So I'm not a person who can really turn up my nose at public schooling, and I'm not trying to do it. And I think that there was a time when it was serving a very, very useful function very effectively. But I think the increasing bureaucratization, the increasing centralization of authority has converted what was at one time a responsive system into an utterly unresponsive machine, which is grinding the students under its wheels as well as the teachers.
Thank you.
My name is Matthew Mead. I'm a member of the faculty of Medgar College of the City University of New York. And I'd like to question you on your voucher system. It seems to me that fundamentally it assumes perfect competition, meaning, of course, that you have a homogeneous product that's being offered to consumers.
Not at all.
I'll continue. That, in fact, there are large numbers of sellers and buyers, and those kinds of things. And additionally, it seems to me that what is not considered, at least you gave very short shrift to, the fact that racism, which of course is an aspect that economic theory has not developed a well-developed theory in order to handle, is sort of like assumed away in your model. Let me suggest that at the higher level, we have, in fact, the voucher system, as you sort of said earlier in your speech. That is that anyone can choose any of the private universities and or state colleges and to go to. However, in this society where racism does exist, what happens is that individuals whose abilities are retarded by environmental racism, etc., do not have the same choice and ability to go to, for example, the Harvards and the Yales and Columbia, as, for example, other students who may not be so afflicted. So what can possibly happen, though, even though under your system, you might have an increase in the general level of scholarship among all students, if in fact there's no relative change within this system, you still have the situation that employees are obviously going to take the best, which is going to be a white upper strata, leave the rest, which is going to be a black and minority lower strata. And in fact, even though all scores, board scores and everything have raised The level of marginal product has to be met, which is also now higher. You, in fact, haven't solved the problem. So, again, even though it's possible to have an increase in the general level of schooling in the system, you can still be left with the fundamental problem that the people who finish relatively on the lower level are going to be left with their problem. And I think that your voucher system doesn't appeal to that. And we see, for example, now University of California at Davis, for example, the famous Bakke case, where a 35 or 38-year-old man is suing because some students with lower scores entered and so on. So again, to conclude, the fact that the institutions themselves also have a choice in the matter. It's not just the consumer. The producer, the school, can decide not to accept the student if, in fact, he's filled up his quota with the best of students.
Well,
so
let's
your voucher
examine.
system, although it might, as I say, make marginal changes, is not a panacea, and it should not be.
Of course
pushed
it's
that
not
way.
a panacea. There are no panaceas. But in the particular terms you're raising, you've got the situation exactly upside down. In my opinion, there is not a single thing you could do in this world that would do more to improve the condition of the black people who have in the lowest income classes, of the black people who have been most affected by discrimination. There is not anything that you could do that would be more effective than the voucher scheme. Why? Because as I said to you before, and I challenge anybody to deny that there's no respect in which the black in the slum is more deprived than in the quality of schooling he can get. He's much worse off in that respect than he is even in the quality of housing he can get, than in the quality of the automobile he can buy, in the quality of the job he can get with given education. I agree with you that the poor educational qualifications have had further effects carry through life in leading him to have few opportunities to improve his economic conditions. But if we want to improve his economic conditions, we want to enable him to be a more productive, a more valuable, a more useful person. And the way to do that is, first of all, to improve his schooling. And how do we improve his schooling? The only effective device that there is for improving his schooling that anybody has suggested is to give the parents more control, to introduce the competition and the drive of private market to improve the quality of the schooling that is available to them. Now you say, I assume perfect competition, I assume, those are all words. I don't assume anything of the kind. I assume that you have a world of the kind you have. In this world of the kind you have, you do not have perfection. That's for the next world. We'll have to wait till we get there, and we don't look forward to it very much. In this world, you have imperfection. The question is, how do we have the least imperfect world? We're not going to eliminate all problems. We're not going to eliminate feelings of racism. Of course not. But we can try to follow policies which will minimize their adverse effects. We can try to follow policies which will give those people who have a desire to improve their own conditions, who have no prejudice, who want to hire people. We want to have a society in which they have the greatest opportunity to do so. By introducing competition, by making it possible to have a variety of different schools and different choices, you say, well, just consider what would happen. If the parents in Harlem, each one of them separately, had the possibility of disposing of $1,500 per child per year for the schooling of that child, do you mean to say that there wouldn't be a flowering of schools of all kinds? I'll bet there are a dozen people in this room who would set up schools to try to meet that demand. Look at what's happened with those small private schools that have been set up under tremendously difficult circumstances. If I go to the other end of the country, if I go to Oakland, California, there's a small preschool school in the suburbs of Oakland set up by the Black Panthers in California. It's the most effective preschool school that there is around there. It's done a better job than any other of the schools in giving the kids who come to it an opportunity really to get an education. So I'm pleading your case, sir. You really, if you'll pardon me, you are repeating in your words formulae you've learned. You are not thinking for yourself.
Sir,
look at the world as it is.
With all due respect, I did say that it is possible to improve generally the school system.
I'm talking
but
about
I said
the
that
bottom.
that does